Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the 2024 Disney original film, Disney Plus original film, Disney original film, Descendants: The Rise of Red. Rise of Red. So this is the fourth Descendants film. This is the 13th project in our Descendants franchise. I did not know that there are 10 books that were written between the first film and this present film, corresponding to different events of things and characters and whatnot. So we got to read them at some point. They're on my list. I ain't doing it anytime soon. It's on my list. I got a lot of other books to get through first. So the beginning of this was wonderful. You have Uma is now the principal of Ordon Prep. Fairy Godmother is like passing the torch, if you will, passing the wand, if you will. And they're welcoming this new group of kids in. So within regards to, Uma getting settled in the principal's office, she's decided that all kids from all lands are to be welcome to Ordon Prep if they so choose. And she wants to invite Princess Red from Wonderland, because Wonderland has been an enemy of Ordon's. They refused to join Ordon when Beast first brought the kingdoms together to create Ordon. And it's the rabbit hole has been walled off since then, right? Boarded up since then. So Fairy Godmother's like, do you think that's the right thing to do? And China Anne McClain's character of Uma looks at the wall on her office of pictures of her friends, and there's a portrait of Carlos there, and she looks over there. Camera stays on him for quite some time. I'm getting teary-eyed, bro. And then we pan back, and she says it's what Carlos would have wanted. And then there's a natural tear, not acting tear, a natural tear coming down China's face, and it was a very difficult moment to watch, but it was a beautiful tribute. It was a very beautiful tribute. It's never discussed or disclaimed. I don't know what the term is of how Carlos passed in the Descendants universe, but he's no longer with us. So it was a nice tribute piece. We get that Uma is in charge of Ordon Prep now because King Ben, Queen Mal, Evie, and Jay are on a whirlwind sailing adventure around the world, trying to, unite more kingdoms together. And it was like, okay, they're doing their things and stuff. It's fine. It's fine. We know Chad is playing tourney in college. We know that because Paolo Mantovano is back as Charming and Brandy is back as Cinderella. And they're the mom and dad of Chad, and then younger sister Chloe. Chloe is one of the main characters. You have Chloe and you have Red, who is the daughter of Queen of Hearts from Wonderland. So the question I had starting this franchise was, how does the 1997 Cinderella property, Howard and Roger Stein's Cinderella, starring Brandy, how does this play in? How does Brandy come back as Cinderella in this, but with blue hair? And my question throughout was, it's not the same Fairy Godmother. The Fairy Godmother in this is a white woman. It's clearly not an incredible actress, and clearly not Whitney Houston, because Whitney Houston's the Fairy Godmother in the 97 film. Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Bernadette Peters is Lady Tremaine in that. Lady Tremaine we get in this is not Lady Tremaine, so it is not Bernadette Peters. So how does this work? How does this work? It turns out that this is not the same universe as the 1997 Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella film. It just so happens they brought the two actors back who played Charming and Cinderella to play the characters again, but with different attributes. And he was called Prince Christopher in the 97 film, and he's only called King Charming in this. So there's a difference. And then Brandy has blue hair throughout all this. She had black hair in the first film. It's not the same. So the question then is, what else is different by bringing this type of multiverse now, right? So we have Brandy as Cinderella in two different multiverses. And they're introduced as characters, as teenage characters. The premise of this is that the Queen of Hearts, played by Rita Ora, who does a fantastic job, mind you, the parents come with the kids to the first day of Ordon Prep, the new school year, that Uma is the principal of. And so we get a reprise of What's My Name? What's My Name? Wonderful, right? Wonderful. And so Queen of Hearts breaks out her deck of cards. The cards turn into soldiers. Everybody's getting, trapped and beheading off with their heads and stuff, right? So Cinderella is being accused of treason. And how dare she, not stand by her friend's side in school when they went to Merlin Academy prior to it being called Auradon Prep, because Auradon has only been around for 30 years. So before Auradon Prep became Auradon Prep, it was called Merlin Academy, and they all went to school there somehow. And Bridget, who is the Queen of Hearts, was turned into this monster as a prank at the big dance that they were having. And so she's been an evil person ever since. So the Mad Hatter has this time machine watch, right, that he checks, much like how the rabbit has, and he gives it to Bridget, who then uses it to then go back in time to stop the events of her mom starting a coup of Auradon. But in the midst of fighting, she takes Chloe along with her, and instead of a couple minutes to stop the coup, they go back a few decades to figure out what's going on. And then it's a matter of, why did the stopwatch, pocket watch, time machine, there we go, bring them back many decades prior, when all of the heroes and villains are all teenagers at Merlin Academy? Who wrote this? Because this is not the plot that we're given in the Descendants franchise. The Descendants franchise was given to us as a sequel to all of the cartoons that have came out, right? Belle marries Beast. Everybody does their things, right? In their things. Okay, and then villains are put onto the Isle of the Lost, barrier goes up. Rest of Auradon unites as one kingdom. Despite the fact it's now being introduced that there's other kingdoms that are actually not united. So how many kingdoms are actually in Auradon? That's the good question. But Ben, Mal, Evie, and Jay are sailing, uniting more kingdoms. Awesome. But I thought the premise was that everything was united. Wonderland is not part of that united. So how does this work? How's everybody united? Other thing, Cinderella, whose name is Ella, is a teenage girl at Merlin Academy, where she meets Charming, Prince Charming. They fall in love at the dance. They sing together, blah, 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 right? They live happily ever after. That's not the story of Cinderella. How is Cinderella's fairy godmother also a teenage student at Merlin Academy? Doesn't make sense. How is Jasmine and Aladdin teenage love interests at Merlin Academy? Doesn't make sense. They don't meet until she pretends she's a peasant and go visits everybody in the streets of Agrabah. They retcon so many things and it makes no sense. Why is Maleficent a teenager in this? That makes no sense. Why is Hades, the god of the underworld, a teenager in this? Makes no sense. So many things of bringing them back in time make absolutely no sense. And the biggest thing that makes absolutely no sense is the plot of the movie. The plot of the movie is to go back in time to prevent the event of the prank from transforming Queen of Hearts, Bridget, into the evil queen that she then becomes, right? Chloe and Red do an incredible job throughout the two actresses do a wonderful job with the characters they're given. Costuming is fantastic. Makeup's fantastic. The wigs everybody has, wonderful. Aesthetically pleasing to look at, as all Descendants films are. It has that Descendants vibe. Music needed way more music. There was 4 songs in this. How is this a musical? There's 4 songs in this. Give me more music in a musical. I had that complaint on the third film, too. There's not enough music in the musicals. I don't know what's going on. Anyway. The villain kids, the VKs, they are called VKs in this. So you have Maleficent, you have Hades, you have Usulana, is that her name? Umalana? No. Uma is the daughter of Ursula. And then you have this new character who's the younger sister of Ursula in this flashback. What was her name? Usulana? I think it was Usulana. Leading the pack, if you will. And then you have Captain Hook as a teenager, and then you also have Morgana's son. Morgana is Ursula's sister. A lot of connections to Ursula, I'm noticing. Ursula's other sister. How many sisters does Ursula have? I'm going to sit down. We're doing our Little Mermaid marathon soon. We're going to pay attention to these things. They find out that there's a spell book, a sorcerer's cookbook, which is banned, and Usalana wants to give it to Bridget to then start the prank or whatever, prank her for making her turn into a flamingo inadvertently. Things, right? It was a whole cupcake scene. Things. So they break into Merlin's office. They get the book, and then the villain kids, the VKs, get the book, and then they freeze. Now, they are then given detention. Merlin is the one who has to undo this curse or something to that extent, right? As they're frozen. If Chloe and Red weren't even there, if Chloe and Red didn't even go back in time, and the VKs break into Merlin's office and get the book, they would still freeze. So they wouldn't be able to continue on with the prank then because they're still frozen. Unless Merlin unfreezes them, and then they still do the prank at the ball, at the dance. But Chloe and Red didn't leave back to their time, back to the future time with the book. The book was staying in the past. So what's the point of them going back in time if the villain kids are still going to freeze if they open the book, regardless if Red and Chloe are there? I don't understand. How did they save the future? Because then, yes, the prank was stopped somehow. And the Queen of Hearts is not the evil Queen of Hearts as she was. She does her, same beginning of the coup, but it turns out she's just doing heart bubbles instead of bringing out the card soldiers. Totally fine. Uma says, "Oh, you thought that was the end of the story? You ain't seen nothing yet," kind of a thing, which leading to the next project of Descendants. And I'm all for it, but I'm concerned because this was not good. The plot made absolutely no sense. How do you stop the past without stopping the past from happening? How did it change anything? The villain kids were going to open the cookbook regardless if they were there. They were going to freeze. So anytime they looked at the cookbook, they could never actually use the cookbook because they would freeze. So how could they make a spell, bake a spell into some form of pastry treat for Bridget to eat to turn into a monster to then cause the villainy? It does not make sense. Who approved of this? What idiot approved of this? I'm upset because we just did a 13 different marathon of this franchise, and everything made sense, as wild as it was, because it's magic and fairy tale and stuff. But Descendants is a sequel to the cartoons that have already been established. What are the characters doing next? Right? What happens if the characters are all in the same universe, all doing things together? And what happens if Beast and Belle are the king and queen of everybody, and they bring everybody together and everybody is one? What happens next, right? It was a beautiful premise, and it made sense. And then bringing in different characters and secondary characters and tertiary characters of the different Disney properties, the different Disney IP, worked. It worked very well. I had my questions in regards to Hades. Why the hell is Hades trapped on an island when he's the god of the dead? Makes no sense. But I looked past it. I looked past it in Descendants 3. I can't look past all of these things. Why is Hades a teenager at Merlin Academy? It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Why was this retconned? Retconning is when you take canon. Canon, these are all fandom terms. Canon is when something is presented to you plot-wise, story-wise, timeline-wise, character development-wise. This is the character's journey, point A to point B to point C. This is the canon of the project. And then retcon is when you take that canon and tweak it however you feel. So the character might have gone from A to B to C to D in this version, right, in the original. And then they'll take the original, and then the character might do A and B, and then all of a sudden B and a half, it splits, and you're like, what just happened? And then a whole new plot starts, and you're like, okay, so it's being retconned. The information that was given to us is being changed to something different, and we're supposed to pretend that it's always been that way. And I hate, loathe entirely. We're going to sing a Wicked song. Loathing, unadulterated loathing, hate, loathe. What's loathing? Hatred. I loathe. I hate. Loathe is fierce hatred. I loathe when a property changes the story that's given to us. I hate it. Whether it's a TV show, whether it's a movie, it's a book series, I hate it. Pay attention to the work that you've done. Pay attention to the story you've created. Pay attention to the timeline presented to us. I get it. These are different writers. Who's in charge of the Descendants property at Disney? Someone had to approve this script. Someone had to sit down and say, yes, all of this makes perfect sense. And I have never seen anything in regards to Descendants. I've never read any of the books. I don't know anything about the prior cartoons that have been around since the 30s with Snow White. It's frightening when a well-to-do company has a well-to-do franchise that's been going on for 9 years, and the latest installment of the franchise is the worst installment of the franchise. Specifically because the story makes absolutely no sense. None of the actors I have any blame for. The beginning of this was absolutely flawless because it gives a tribute moment and it was wonderful and it explained why our other characters are not there. It explained it. And then time traveling back to fix the past, which makes no sense because it's irrelevant. They would freeze if they looked at the book. Whether they were there or not, it doesn't make sense. It also doesn't make sense why this is a whole multiverse now of Brandy as Cinderella. I don't get it. Why bring that to us? The story of Cinderella is that she meets the prince at the ball. Not at high school. They don't go to the same high school as the fairy godmother. It makes no sense. Descendants. Rise of Red. Super unfortunate. Had some good songs. Aesthetically pleasing to look at. Visuals were stunning. Costuming was wonderful. I'm terrified for whatever the next installment is in the Descendants franchise. Absolutely terrible. Terrified because of how terrible this story was. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. Going back to one of my questions I had a few reviews ago, how do I compare favorites with Zombies, Disney Zombies, which has 3 films, the 4th coming out. There's 2 different TV series, which is on my list. I haven't seen them. We're getting there. Versus Descendants. And because of this last installment in the Descendants franchise, the 13th project, no. Absolutely not. It brought Descendants down so many pegs, and there was no reason for it. There was no reason to do this to the franchise that's been around for 9 years. Absolutely no reason that this was approved. No reason it did this to the talent. No reason it did this to the story. No reason it did this to the characters. Makes absolutely no sense. Stupid. Long live Zombies. Descendants, Rise of Red. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.